The question is, what sets a Cambridge student, apart from an Oxford student? So, what is the major difference? That's a very controversial question, but yeah. How
Yeah.
should a person like me approach that big university?
You can tell me, how focused are you? How much do you want it? Let's say 100 is that you're going to kill for it, and 0, you couldn't care less. Where would you place yourself?
सत श्रीकाल सारे और ढेर सारा प्यार है. Hope all of you doing absolutely fine. Welcome back to another episode. In this particular episode, I have with me Ali Arsalan Pasha, who has done his masters from University of Oxford in South Asian Studies and is currently enrolled in McGill University. In this episode, I talk to him about various topics like how to get into University of Oxford, how should one aim for scholarship, and how should one write statement of purpose. And follow me on Instagram by Rasleen Grover. Enjoy the episode.
So, first of all, welcome to Honest Discussion series, Ali. And this has been the most demanded podcast on my channel because people want to they want to hear people from Oxford and Cambridge. And you're the first one. So, Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. Okay, so I just want to begin with you telling me the story. How did you get into Oxford and what has been the journey like?
Right. So the journey starts 4 years ago. I was working with the Turkish government as a policy advisor because I'm an architect, so I was advising on land use policy. And then the military coup happened. And when that happened, a lot of things shut down, and I really had to reevaluate whether I want to stay in the country or whether I want to leave. So after I waited for a few months just to see whether this post-coup situation will continue or will it change. It didn't change. This was the new normal. So I decided to leave. And I grew up in England, so I went to see my parents for a bit. And they said, just stay around for a while. Don't go back to Pakistan. Don't go to Turkey. Just figure what you want to do. And one of my close friends from my university in Turkey, he got into Oxford in, I think, September 2017. And he updated it on Facebook. I'm not going to say his name, but obviously he is starting at Oxford. And I wrote to him, I said, do you mean Oxford or Oxford Brookes? He said, Oxford. And I said, you got into a PhD in Oxford? He said, yeah. And I said, but what? You never even told me. And he said, I think you should apply too. I said, I can't apply. Oxford is the best school in the world. I can't apply. Although I had a distinction in my master's, but my undergrad was like a B average. So I never thought that academically it would fit. But he insisted a couple of times, and I spoke to my parents, and they said, there's no harm in applying. Just try it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. But just take the shot rather than not take the shot. Yeah. I got in a couple of months later. I got the email, and I couldn't believe it for the whole day and the next day. And then your college emails you because, as you know, Oxford is a collegiate system. So there are 34 colleges. You've been admitted into this college in Oxford. We will look after you. You're like, and then scholarships start emailing you. Hi, Ali. We are blah, blah, blah scholarship. We're particularly for Pakistan, for India, for so forth. If you'd like a scholarship, please apply to us. So all these things started happening. And I said, what is going on? And then, thank God, I got in and I went and I finished. I did well. I had a lot of fun.
How was the experience? Like people, they say that it's the best school in the world, Oxford, Cambridge. So how's the experience there? If you could share that.
It's different as a postgrad because I went in as a postgrad, and that was one of the reasons. Because I went, how old was I in 2018? Yeah, I was 30. I was just 31. So I decided to go then. It's very different as an undergrad compared to a postgrad because my choice of college was the farthest college from the center of the city, and I had written no tourists, no undergrads. This is my reasoning for selecting this college because I want to study and sleep at a normal time, and I don't want undergrads living next to me just jumping up and down, which happens a lot. So I didn't want that, and I didn't want tourists peeking through my windows. Hi, can we come see your room? You're like, no, I'm studying. I have an exam. So I didn't want that to happen. So I picked that college. So as a postgrad, they don't require much of you, apart from the fact that you just do your study or your research, publish your papers, speak at some conferences, that's it. Although, on the other hand, because I knew this was Oxford, I had no intention of doing a doctorate there, just wanted to get a second master's from a good university. So I went and I lived it like an undergrad. So the Oxford Union, the Oxford Guild, every college, every society, I was there.
Wow.
Apart from doing all my studies, I was
Yeah.
there, and I also wanted to work while I was in Oxford. So I found a job. I was working, and it was 8 a.m. to midnight, that kind of a day, every day.
Mm.
And I loved it. Like we say in Urdu, Hindi, nachorna. To like,
Ah.
how would you say it in English? To suck the marrow out of life, as they say in Death Poets
Yeah.
Society.
But
That's
they
what I ended
usually
up doing.
say, right, the master's program in Oxford or Cambridge or any university in general, it's quite rigorous than the bachelor's degree just. Especially, I can talk about India, that my bachelor's degree was quite easy on me. So I feel like master's is going to be extremely hard, like if I try for Oxford or Cambridge, because I haven't really studied that much in my
Yeah.
bachelor's.
It's a bit specific, Rasleen. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because I was doing modern South Asian studies, and
Mm.
my focus was foreign policy, because that's what I had done before and that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So I wasn't very concerned about mathematics
Mm.
or history that much, or geography. There were so many subjects
Mm.
that I wasn't concerned with because of the nature of my degree. Or people who come to study the public policy or MBA, they're only concerned about that thing. In undergrad, it's very, very vast. So it's not as rigorous as you say, but it's
Yeah.
very, very vast because people don't know where they're going. So
Mm.
I had friends who studying law or PPE, which is the very popular politics, philosophy, economics degree. And they
Mm.
had to submit case studies every week. And they had tutorials every week for different subjects. So they were writing 4 or 5 essays a week. So
That's
we didn't
like for Oxford and Cambridge, right?
Yeah, at the
Yeah.
undergrad level. For
Okay.
us, we used to write an essay a month, but that
Mm.
essay would be
Like,
substantial,
yeah.
and the word not substantial in terms of the word count. The word count
Mm.
was 2,000, 2,500,
Mm.
but in terms of how you write it, because we're learning how to do research. Undergrads aren't learning how to do research; they're just researching.
Mm.
But we are learning methodology, how to apply it, and how to really get a good paper out of it. So that's why
Yeah.
it's harder. Absolutely. But it's
Yeah.
more specific, it's less general, so you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, like, for a person like me, I'm just going to complete my undergrad next year. And
Right.
I wish to apply for Oxford and Cambridge, maybe for 2022 or 2023 with
Yep.
scholarship, because otherwise it gets really expensive for international students. How should
Yep.
a person like me approach that big university?
And what would you like to do a master's in?
Public policy.
The MPP. You will be competing against people who've worked in the civil service for 3 to 5 years, or
Okay.
2 to 3 years at least in the civil service, or who've been associated. Because I was always associated with members of parliament or government, but I didn't apply to the MPP because I thought that's going to be very, very competitive.
Mm.
Let me hedge my bets. But you have a very good profile. How's your math? Are you good at math?
No, no.
Hmm. So the GRE is out of the question.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if the GMAT also asks for a math score, because it says in the MPP that the GRE is optional, but it's always an asset. Like they look
Okay.
for it,
Okay.
like the
Okay.
MBA. So that can help buttress your application. See, anybody can get a good GPA. I'm not saying it's nothing, but it's not the end of the world. They are
Yeah.
looking for people who they can fashion into future leaders. And by future leaders, I mean next 20 to 30, 40 years. So right now you're in your early 20s. They look at you and say, when this lady hits her 40s, can she represent the United Nations, or can she represent
Uh,
India at NATO, or at the NSG or the NPT? Can she represent India at
mm,
that level? Yeah,
mm.
go on. You want
So,
to ask
like
something?
at a global level, right? They usually see how can that student be an asset because you're fighting with like global talent in general, right?
And the
Mm.
MPP is famous. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful degree because it brings people from all around the world,
Yeah.
and not only representatively. There's when I used to visit, there were 3 or 4 Pakistanis, 4 or 5 Indians, a couple of Chinese people, Brazilians. They
Mm.
all were in one classroom, well, conference room, and they would always just contest with each other. It was so interesting to watch. And
Mhm.
they'd be given a problem and they'd have to solve it like a case study in real time. So it was very nice. The art of
Mm.
diplomacy is born there. You see it
Mm.
happening. You're like, wow, look at that. Latin America speaking to South Asia. We don't normally hear that dialogue,
Yeah.
but it's happening right now. Wow, so interesting.
Yeah.
Or China speaking to Australia. Wow, very
Mm.
nice. You know.
Yeah.
So it's a great breeding ground for future leaders. So a lot of my friends were from the civil service, a lot of them, or somebody with political experience. So yeah, definitely do that. And people who follow your podcast and your channel, they should also keep this in mind, that some work experience help in the MPP. Now, if it's a Masters of Science, then work experience isn't as important as what you've studied, how your grades were, and what you intend to do. If you want to do like a research on something, for example, you studied economics and politics, and you can study migration policy, or you can study history of whatever in a particular context. Then you don't need work experience, but then it's not the MPP. You apply to something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how to really approach scholarship, because the competition is even higher when you're aiming for scholarships?
Early, very, very early, perhaps a year early. So if you're applying for 2022, start reaching out to them now. So in India, I think the Indira Gandhi is for India, and there are a couple of others for India. Just start reaching out to them, build that connection. Also, some professors are associated with the board that decides the scholarship. So they're not going to help you get a scholarship. There's no nepotism, but they could advise you. They could definitely say, you know what, you're not suitable for this, or you know what, maybe you should say this to make your application more appealing. So try doing that early. And also, Oxford offers, I think, 1,100 scholarships, different types of scholarships to a lot of students. So just look into which ones you can avail. And in your application form, you have to write, I need this scholarship. Sometimes if you apply for a good college, because colleges give scholarship too. So you can get a collegiate scholarship.
Yeah. And what about scholarships like Commonwealth or Rhodes, which gives 100% scholarship, and also, but they have this criteria, right, that you have to return back to your country after you finish your master's degree.
I don't know if the Rhodes requires you to return, because I have a couple of friends. Well, I can't remember. Maybe you can double check. I don't remember, because I have quite a few Rhodes scholar friends, but I don't know if they're returned. But the Commonwealth, absolutely. The Rhodes is very, very competitive. You know, it's Oxford's like best scholarship that they offer. It's the most famous one. It's quite competitive, but I know a lot of people who get in. All of them are adequate to stellar in terms of academic performance. That's obviously expected for Oxford. But all of them have some sort of volunteer experience, some sort of thing that they've done in society or are doing in society that they can say, you know, this is what sets me apart. The third thing they have is that they want to say, I'm academically sound, I've been doing this in society, and this is what I will do after the Rhodes Scholarship. So they need to see this. Can we see, all this conversation is about, can we invest in this person going forth? If we invest a Rhodes Scholarship, because once you become a Rhodes Scholar, that's for life. You end up representing the Rhodes Trust for life. Do we really want to invest in this person? One of my friends, I think she was a silver medalist in her university in Pakistan, came for the Rhodes Scholarship. Now she works for the Blavatnik School of Government in policy. Excellent.
Okay. Wow.
Another friend of mine came from, I think, Colorado or somewhere in the US. And she was, I think she was top 10 in a beauty pageant. She won, I think, countless awards, and she had that personality. And I think she was writing a book, or she'd already written a book. She came as an American Rhodes Scholar. So that kind of profile. One of my closest friends just got a Rhodes Scholarship from Hong Kong, and he's a beast. His undergrad GPA was, Lord, I don't know how high. I think 9th out of 250. And he started his MPhil at 20. So he's that kid. So
those are like prodigy, right? Like very rare.
Yeah, he's rare. But, you know, that's the Rhodes level. So he is the academically sound one. And then I gave you the beauty pageant one, or the one, somebody else who's done that experience. I have another friend. Oh, I have so many Rhodes friends. She came for an exchange program, and she had done a lot of activist work in the US. So that really, really helps. Yeah.
I think one benefit you get after studying, you know, universities like Oxford or Cambridge or like Ivy League as well, is that you definitely get that amount of exposure, but also you build that amount of network. Like you're talking about, I have friends, you know, who have cleared this scholarship and all of it. So I can't flaunt that right now at a bachelor's level because I don't have that big amount of network. Whatever it is through LinkedIn. I'm connecting with people like you, and I'm getting so inspired to actually do some bit. You know, if I can help somebody with my podcast, if this really helps somebody get an admission in Oxford, it would be great, right?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. My network, when I finished Oxford, My LinkedIn network was 200 something people because I didn't pay much mind.
Yeah.
Last night it was 7,500 or something.
Mhm.
With under a year, I would say. And I just wrote that recently, and it's just growing. And it's not only students; it's members of parliament, it's
Mm.
writers, it's public speakers, it's God knows how many, and it's
Yeah.
growing. People I've worked with, I'm doing projects with, it just grows, and it
Yeah.
all changed after Oxford. So I'm kind of thankful that the Turkish coup happened. Otherwise, I would have still been in Turkey in my university, maybe doing a doctorate or whatever. Just I was on that line, and I'm glad it happened that way. So if you're planning to do it,
Yeah.
do it. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Well, when are you? Oh yeah, you're graduating next year,
Next year.
right?
Yeah.
Should you apply at once? No, not for the MPP. Yeah. Okay. Wait a bit. Yeah. If you're doing the MPP, then wait 1 year, get the Lamb Fellowship under your belt, and
Yeah.
then apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, one apprehension I have with the Masters of Public Policy or with this field is that
Yeah.
there are no much job prospects, which I feel in our country, because public policy is still an emerging field in our country, like India.
I see.
And yeah, so like, how should one approach it? Because if I'm investing a year or so in this particular degree, and if I'm going abroad, you need that kind of return on investment as well. So how should one
That's
approach it?
That's a good question
Yeah.
because I'm currently in Montreal. Before that, I was in Oxford and London.
Yeah.
So in those countries, it's very well developed. It has a strong history for public sector work. But with this kind of a degree, you could get anything in the public sector, anything at all, because the MPP isn't just a policy specialist. They're
Yeah.
training you how to work in the public sector, but also more and more private sector offices are starting to have a policy cell,
Mm.
political risk assessment, because I've done political risk assessment
Yeah.
cell, and they have foreign policy cells because, for example, Facebook and the whole uh, engagement with Cambridge Analytica, or the whole engagement with India versus China, that's a foreign policy argument. It's not a business administration argument only, right? So they need to employ their own professionals who are experts in foreign policy rather than outsources it for consultancy, because the outsourcing can charge a lot. The other thing you can do is you can work in think tanks, but I don't know how big think tanks are in India. They're not very big in Pakistan, but in England they're substantially big. In America, they're huge. Think tanks are
Yeah.
huge. Rand, Brookings, Stimson's, Carnegie, CFR. There's so many think tanks you could work in. So you could do that. You could also work in NGOs and NPOs in India. I'm sure they're very popular because what the MPP will do for you, just like you said, the degree is just a stamp from the Blavatnik School of Government that this student came and trained with us. What you need to do if you end up going is to make sure that your network is stellar,
Yeah.
is incredible. So the Blavatnik School of Government has been doing an Oxford COVID government response tracker, how each government is responding to the COVID pandemic. And they have representatives in every single country around the world or nearby. How are these representatives working for free? Well, they are previous students. So you remain connected to Oxford. I'm still
Oh.
connected to the Oxford Union. I'm still connected to the Blavatnik. I'm still connected to Wolfson College. So once you go there, they're still connected. I came to Montreal, and within a month, I was inducted into the Oxford Society of Ottawa. It's
Okay. Wow.
just like that. There's one in Montreal, there was one in Toronto. I'm sure there's some in Mumbai or Delhi. Or if there's not, you could set one up
Yeah.
because there's so many. So that's what they can do. There's all public sector work and a lot of private sector work. There are students who go there, they can do an MPP or a master's and then join law. Because law is not just for lawyers. There's so many
Yeah.
things that the legal profession requires, like a policy expert. So you could really do that. You could go into PR, public relations, that the name of the university and the degree that you do and the network that you build. They'll take you leaps and bounds ahead of whatever you had thought. So yeah, whoever wants to come to these schools, that's what they have to do. Because public policy is just starting, fair enough, in India, but foreign policy has existed. Housing policy, health policy, education policy, so on and so forth. Health policy is so big right now, right, in the whole world.
Yeah.
So they could jump into that.
So, like,
Yeah.
the opportunity is not niched, like, if you talk about public policy. No, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's not a doctorate, right? It's an MPP. So the MPP is a very general degree and it has a lot of great electives. And you can mix and match and build your own profile. Like, this is what I want to do. And then either work for an office or as a final year project or write a research paper. So one of my really good friends who's at the MPP, she ended up working with the dean of the Blavatsky School of Government. She interned with her for 3 to 4 months. And that's great experience. And then she went back to Pakistan to join the civil service again. So yeah, that's something that people can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else is there? Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Also, if you could talk about how should one write an essay for scholarships or for admissions in general.
Mm. Yeah. So if you've seen my LinkedIn, so I do these weekly sessions on
Yeah,
Sundays, and I've just
I
started
attend
them.
all of it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I do talk about that there in a lot of detail. And the crux that, because then people watch them and then they write to me like you wrote to me and they send me statements of purpose. And for consulting, I don't charge, but for editing, I charge, and I've charged quite a few people. And it's a good consulting is a good side business to run. And for now, I'm happy with the side business. I don't want to operate as a main business. But the advice that I give them is, I'll talk about the statement of purpose. Research proposals comes later. So the statement of purpose, nobody's going to spend an hour reading 900 to 1,000 words or 500 to 1,000 words in detail. They're going to whiz through it because, like you, there are 500 others. And the time span is between November 17th and March. That's like 2 to 3 months, at the same time as doing other things, because admission officers are not only reading your proposals or statements. So they have to be very, very punchy, very, very clear. They have to set you apart, but at the same time, they have to be academic and they have to be formal. So it can't be, yo, what's up? I'm the greatest thing to walk on the, it can't be that. And it can't also be, I'm writing to apply to this degree because I've always loved, it can't be robotic, and it can't be completely the opposite end. It has to be vacillating between both extremes. So you have to start with something. So as far as I recall, my statement of purpose in Oxford and since, because now I'm at McGill, it started something like, having lived through the Turkish military coup really inspired me to pursue blah, blah, blah in my life. You see that one sentence, you're like, this guy, and I've told them something about myself as well. I've lived through a coup.
Yep.
It has really caused me to reevaluate my life, and now I'm going to do this. So that something is necessary. If you don't have it, for example, if you are from a very normal family, you've never done anything crazy in your life, try to create an ambition. Having had this ambition, I have always had the dream to be whatever you want to say. Just something to show that sets you apart. Because if it starts with, I'm applying to this degree to study blah, 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 they know you're applying to that degree to study that. It's not a shock, is it? So try to do that. Then you need to show that you understand the field a little. And that is shown through your academic expertise, academic profile, and your work experience and volunteer experience. And then finally, you need to show that you understand the faculty a bit. So ex-professor's research really made me feel like that I would love to work or learn from this professor on this particular thing. So those kind of things are very necessary. So they say, okay, the student is interesting, they know the field, and they know where they want to study. Okay, let's give them a chance. Do they have the GPA? Yes. Do they have this? Yes. Okay, let's give them a chance. That's how it happens. And there are cycles of admission. The first cycle is in November. So 17th of November is the first deadline, typically. So the first cycle happens in November, and then the second cycle happens in like early January. That's when they start doing it. And then by March, they let you know that you've been admitted or not. So that's the whole process, how it follows. So try to set yourself apart without being too crazy or too unique. Like, I have 5 arms and I have green hair. No. Like, stay in the bounds of what is acceptable behavior, but really set yourself apart. And if you can't, then think about it. And get your parents and friends and professors to say, I really want to do something substantial in my life. And for that, I need to go to I would like to go to one of these schools. What can you say about me that you found unique? And a lot of people, you'll be surprised. Just go and ask your parents or your friends, like, what do you like about me? And they'll say things that you don't look at, because we are looking from the inside. When somebody else looks at us, I love your confidence. I feel like I'm struggling with confidence all the time. But when other people talk about me, they're like, you have so much confidence. I was like,
Yeah.
really? Me? This guy right here? You know what I mean? So try to get their opinions, and from that make something, if you don't have a story to
Yeah.
tell.
So yesterday, one of my friend, I was talking to her, and she told me, let's create a Google form and let's just circulate it all over. That what do you think? What things you like about me, and then we can really write that in our statement of purpose. And I was like, that's a really good idea. We can
That's a
really
very good
circulate.
idea.
Yeah.
That's a very good idea. Yeah, yeah. If you do that, because we're limited by our perspective, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a subjective inward perspective. So when other people talk about you, they can say things like, you did this. Like my eldest brother, he remembers things about my life that I just don't remember, because I was focused on the problem, but he was watching me focus on the problem, and he said things like, I love how compassionate you are. I've never felt compassionate in my life. But he said, I love how, and I said, really, why would you think so? He said, because of this. I said, maybe I am compassionate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So your friend has a great idea. Just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just speak to them in person. If nobody wants to fill a form,
Yeah.
they can just tell you, and they can tell you, these are your weaknesses, maybe improve them, and write that in the statement of purpose. I have always felt that I'm wanting when it comes to general knowledge, therefore I'm doing this. You know what I mean? They want to see a person. They don't want to see an artificially produced application. They want to see a candidate, and because people are judging it, machines aren't judging it. So people will connect to you if you're a human being, rather than this perfect student with a perfect GPA, no difficulties in life, and everything's cool. No, they're not going to connect you, because leaders are born out of these universities, and leaders are people who the populace can connect with. They can only connect with you if they can empathize and you can engage with them. So be authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my other question is, what sets a Cambridge student, apart from an Oxford student? So what is the major difference? That's a very controversial question, but yeah.
You're asking the wrong person, because I went to Oxford, and in Oxford we call Cambridge the other place. We don't even call it Cambridge. We're like,
Okay.
oh, where are you from? Oh, you're from the other place. So we have that kind of camaraderie with them, and always it's competition. I think the only thing, the major difference that I've seen, well, it's two major differences, and they're intertwined. Cambridge students, I know I might get a lot of flack for this, but I don't care. Cambridge students are generally nicer than Oxford students. And I think it's because they don't carry the mantle of having produced, 20 or 27 UK prime ministers, which is Oxford. Out of the last 42, I can't remember, but it was a huge percentage of prime ministers come from the UK, come from Oxford. And not only in the UK, around the world. Pakistan's current prime minister studied Oxford. Benazir Bhutto studied Oxford. Liaquat Ali Khan was here in one of these schools. So it happens a lot, all around the world, that you go there. Pete Buttigieg, one of the candidates for president in the US, also came to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. So there's so many. So I think Oxford has that burden because of that. If you want to build a political future, you go to Oxford. If you want to build a more scientific or research-based future, you go to Cambridge. I think that's the primary difference, because Cambridge has more Nobel laureates and Oxford has more prime ministers, I think that was the big division. That's why Oxford has that, for lack of a better word, arrogance. Okay. Because I'll tell you, when I went, nobody teaches you. It's just how everyone relates to you that you start behaving in that stiff upper lip manner. Oh yes, I'm in Oxford. What college I'm at? I met Boris Johnson at Parliament, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in May last year. I was there, and I remember meeting him at Parliament, and I was saying hi, blah blah blah, and then my friends went to see him right after I did, and he said, "Oh, are you also from Oxford?" They said yes. He said, "What college were you at?" And they named their college, and he was like, "Oh, you're at that college." It does happen. That is how it happens. And that's how we do it. Because whenever somebody would say, "Oh, what college are you at?" And I would say, "I'm at the best college in Oxford." What are you talking about? And that whole thing happens. It doesn't happen so much in Cambridge. I was invited to Cambridge to sing once, and then I was invited to Cambridge for a few debates, and they were just gentler. You feel they're gentler people. But that maybe I'm biased. But that was my conclusion between Oxford and Cambridge.
Okay. And
But if you
yeah.
if you want somebody who's really practical and who gets the job done, then you don't go to somebody from Oxford or Cambridge. You go to somebody who's been to the London School of Economics
Okay.
or Warwick Business School, because the advantage of living in that big city actually makes you very practical and pragmatic. Oxford and Cambridge are echo chambers because they're citywide universities, right? So the whole city is the university. That's what they're running. So it becomes an echo chamber after a while. So maybe that's also a negative side effect.
Yeah, so like even me as a person, like I don't know why, but I'm more attracted towards Oxford. But a lot of people tell me that Cambridge needs to have that kind of a entrepreneurial mindset if you wish to get into Cambridge. I don't know why. And for Oxford, you don't need that. You need
Yeah.
more on a scholarly side.
And you have to be eloquent in Oxford.
Hmm.
In Cambridge, you don't have to be as eloquent. I'm not saying Cambridge is, I'm not knocking it down at all. It's a
Hmm.
great school.
Hmm.
But Oxford, the Oxford Union, is the last bastion of free speech. It's the center. The YouTube channel has over 1 million followers or whatever, I can't remember. And they have these videos every week. And it's all about 19 to 23-year-olds debating members of parliament, debating writers and activists and free speech thinkers, and so many people from all around the world. At the tender age of 20, you have that experience. And so it has that thing. I think the union really represents a lot of the things that Oxford stands for. And a lot of students have a problem with that because of how the union is portrayed and perceived by so many students. So yeah, I think Oxford has that thing attached to it. So scholarly and research based may not be the only thing. The ability to articulate yourself is quite important in Oxford.
Yeah. Okay.
Haven't seen that so much in Cambridge.
Okay. And
Yeah.
correct me, Ali, if I'm wrong. People told me that once you're like, when you're aiming for universities like Oxford and Cambridge, start mailing professors like prior to like, I don't know, 6 months or 7 months when you're going for admissions. So like, is it true that if you mail professors, you have an edge over other students?
No edge at all. No, there's no nepotism. I haven't seen any nepotism at all. There's no edge, however. Professors are incredibly busy people. Incredibly busy people. So there's a strong chance that they may end up never replying to you. But if they do, they're never going to say, wow, come, I will make sure you will get in. Nobody can assure that. Not even the admissions officer. But what they can do is they can say, your research looks interesting, maybe you should apply. That's what they can tell you. I have a very, very close friend from India. He's quite prominent, so I'm not going to name him at all. But he got into Oxford and Cambridge twice, and he came the second time with me. And he had written to the person who ended up supervising him. He had written to that person months, a year in advance, just to say, well, I'm thinking about it. And that person knew of him and said, yes, that's a research direction that you can take. Yes, that is something interesting. So, but they can't guarantee your admission. There's no edge, but at least you would know. For example, you're studying BSc Economics and Politics. You want to do the MPP. What if you write to one of the professors at the Blavatnik and say, I want to do the MPP, and this is what I want to work on. And they can look at it and say, that's a good topic, but there's no one to supervise you to do that. For example, I came to McGill because I had written to University of Toronto, similarly, that I want to work on nuclear weapons. And they said, we have nobody to specialize in nuclear weapons right now. Don't come. Don't. So I said, okay, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, so they're not going to give you an edge, but they're going to help you rationalize your application and channel it correctly. Because that would be cheating now, won't it? Nepotism, if they give you an edge. So that never happens. But they will be able to help you decide whether you want to do it in the first place. And if you do decide to do it, then how best to make an application. Because they'll give you some tips. Like, for example, right after Oxford, I worked for a think tank called the IISS. It's a very prominent think tank. And while I was there, I was always talking to people about nuclear weapons, nuclear security, blah, blah, blah. And a couple of people said to me, Ali, there's nothing new happening in nuclear security. The weapons are there. The treaties are signed or almost signed. The civil nuclear deals are happening. There's nothing to add. You should be looking at cybersecurity. I said, I mean, is that a big thing? That's the thing. That's what everyone said. That's the thing. you should start looking at cybersecurity. And that's what happened. Then when I looked at it, there was this huge canvas available for research to happen, and a lot of research now happens on the intersections, as I've said in so many of my talks. So it's not just cybersecurity, it's cybersecurity and economics, or it's economics and migration, or economics and health. So those kind of things. So the professor might be able to help you see that. Or you could just read the professor's profile and say, wow, her last paper was on this. So this is what she's researching on these days. So this may be a current topic. So that's something you can work on. Yeah.
I'm a Punjabi and we have a thing for Canada. So how are how are the job prospects
You do
there?
have a thing for Canada in Brampton.
Yes.
Brampton, yeah. So many Punjabis.
Yeah. So how are the job prospects there, and how's the political situation there currently? If you could talk about that.
The political situation is fine.
Okay.
But the COVID situation in Montreal, at least, is quite irresponsible. Less so by the government, but I'm not very well versed in the Canadian government yet. But people are being slightly careless with the COVID thing. That's why our numbers have gone up.
Yeah.
It's not because we don't have adequate supplies, but people have been careless in the metropolis. So that's why it's a bit unsure. Because of COVID, the job market is obviously very, very slow. I was lucky I was able to reach out to contacts, start working in consulting, and I'm at McGill. So that really, really helps. But other than that, it's a bit slow. And Canada, for lack of a better word, is more insular these days because they really want to invite talent from abroad, and they want that talent to work in Canada, because what a lot of people have done is they come here, get the passport, and go back.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to, like I came here from England and I decided that I will stay here at least 20 to 30 years and really get involved in the Canadian politics and the public policy sector to really be part of this country. Otherwise, why would I come here? I could go anywhere else, right? So they need to see that. So they need to see that commitment. So when people come here, a lot of them find jobs easily. If they don't, there are a lot of safeguards that have been installed. So you can intern for people, you could volunteer for people. There's, I don't know how many websites you could use, Careers Edge and Robert Half, and there's so many. I'm just thinking. So you have recruiters and headhunters. You have for example, I'm at McGill. So I've been in contact with on-campus recruiters who don't even apply to my field, but I just went just to see what it was about, and I was connected to them. So that happens once you come here. So if you're thinking about coming here, then keep those things in mind. And it also depends what province you're going to come to. If you're going to come to Quebec, then you have to learn French.
Okay.
So I didn't make that decision because I was thinking, shall I go to Toronto or McGill? And then I decided, look, I'll go to McGill. And I came here, and studying at McGill, French isn't necessary. But living in Montreal, Quebec, working in government, French is absolutely necessary. So I started learning French last term. So you have to decide where you want to come. That would really help. Yeah.
I just want to ask you, how should one aim for international organizations like UN, World Bank, Asian Development Bank? How should they build their profile?
If you want to work for the UN, WHO, NATO, ADB, there's no one single route to it, but internships are the best route. So typically in your final year, like I have a friend, she's an architect. She studied at BRAC in Bangladesh, and she works for the World Bank now as an architect. And she didn't do a master's or anything from abroad, like a policy master's. She went and worked as an architect, and she continues to work for them. Very good friend of mine. So you have to start building those connections early, and a lot of them happen through internships. So depends where the office is. In India, I mean, I'm sure in Delhi, there are a lot of UN offices or intergovernmental organization offices. So try reaching out to them. If you don't know anybody there, then LinkedIn is your best friend. And the good thing about LinkedIn, as opposed to Facebook, is in Facebook, people are very choosy about who they allow on your friends list, including myself. On LinkedIn, everybody's friendly. If they see your request, more often than not, they'll accept it. They're like, yeah, sure, let's work together.
Yeah.
So because of that, You could write to them, and a lot of people respond. I have corresponded with Barack Obama's speechwriter. Obama's speechwriter. I haven't even met him, but I was watching an Obama documentary and I thought, this guy's incredible. And I found him on LinkedIn and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to write to him. And he wrote back. I was like,
Yeah.
so many writers from India. I came across my profile on LinkedIn and we started talking.
Yeah.
It just happens. So LinkedIn is a great platform and you can just start building that connection and say, I want to join the UN. I'm 21, 22 right now. By the time I'm 30, I want to be in the UN. What should I do? And there's a thing in England, and I think in Canada as well. I don't know if it has trickled down to India yet. It's called coffee meetups. So typically in person, they used to happen in person. Now they happen on Zoom. You sip your coffee, they sip their coffee there. And you meet them for 10 to 15 minutes. And you say, and it's not a job interview. They're not going to hook you up with anything, but you buy them a cup of coffee, which is $2, £3, doesn't matter. And they give you 15 minutes or 20 minutes of their time or half an hour of the time. And they just sit with you and they're like, I did 26 coffee meetups when I was at IISS. I met everyone except the general director. I met everyone. And I said, I'm working here, but my contract is finishing in November. I want to do this. That's where people told me work in cybersecurity, not nuclear security. I was like, this is what I want to do. What should I do? So do that. And the internship you'll set up, obviously most internships are unpaid. No problem. It's fine. It's okay. You're not supporting a family at 21, 22 mostly. Just do it. Couple of months and perform like your life depends on it. I tell everybody that before the age of 30, you should be working at least 12 hours a day. At least. If you can't work 12 hours a day, start waking up early. I wake up every day at 5 a.m. So if you wake up at 6 and work till 6 p.m., cool, that's 12 hours. If you're working 12 hours a day, people who are looking to mentor new talent, they will obviously notice you. And once you do that, for example, let's say you get an internship at the UN, you have 3 months to show them that you are somebody worth investing into. What are you going to do? You're going to work very, very hard. You're going to network like it's second nature. Doesn't matter if you're an extrovert or introvert. That's your life. That's your bread and butter now. And you're going to try and find any opportunities to do whatever. So what they end up saying is, you know what? I might need an intern in September. Would you be interested? You're like, yes. Or they're even more ambiguous than that. I'm thinking maybe I should get an intern. I'm not sure yet. Maybe I'll let you know. That means you're in the consideration. If not, they won't even float it. So you build upon that and you find them ways of why they should really look at you. So yeah, that's how it is. And it's great. It's a great job to work for such organizations. It's great fun. Yeah.
So I'm quite overwhelmed with the kind of work experience you have, and I wish to do something like you by the age I turned 30. So how should one beat procrastination? Like, it's super cold. I don't wish to leave my bed, but then I'm like, okay, kar lege, that, procrastination really comes up. So how should one really beat that? It's for all the youngsters out there.
Not just the youngsters. I procrastinate. Sometimes I end up watching Kapil Sharma for hours and hours on YouTube because I love his sense of humor, and I can just put it on and just lean back and just watch him for hours and hours, and I'm like, I wasted my evening. So that's why I start early, because I'm a morning person. I start early and I've routined my morning. So I do the similar things every morning. Every morning I pray, I have breakfast, I do this, I work out. So it kind of sets you in that motion of doing it. So if you're not a morning person, I don't know what to tell you. If you're more of an evening person, then try to set a time of when you will stop procrastinating and kind of force yourself in that mode of habit. So for example, typically people have supper around 9, 10. And if you're a night owl, just say, okay, after supper, I'm just going to chill for 2 hours. And at midnight, I'm going to start working. And I'll keep working till the sun comes out, for example. And you have to set yourself that. Secondly, the computer is the worst thing to do any work on because you have everything on your fingertips with the internet. I'm working on a Google Doc so much, many Google Docs. And I can just scroll to the next tab, which is a YouTube video. Or just click one button and some show that I downloaded starts playing. I had to shut off any access to any social media apart from Facebook and LinkedIn. No Instagram, no Twitter, no Snap, whatever. I don't have this. So distracting. And there's so much time. And in lockdown, when we're craving connection with another human being apart from our family or friends, those things just become avenues to put your focus into. So I never advocate for, oh, just do it 1 hour a day. I say no, cut them out of your life. So depends how focused you are, Rasleen, about getting this Lamb Fellowship and about going to Oxford. You can tell me, how focused are you? How much do you want it? Let's say 100 is that you're going to kill for it, and 0, you couldn't care less. Where would you place yourself?
Definitely 100. I badly want it. That's the aim.
You'd kill for it. I hope that passion sustains, because if so, then whatever is distracting you, cut it out. Cut it. If it's a Facebook account, shut it off and open it back in 3 months, because you can open it back. And then they keep emailing you, are you sure you want to leave Facebook? So, if it's a YouTube account, do that. If it's an Instagram thing, shut it off and open. Because when we really want to, that's why monks go to the caves and mountains to meditate, because the real world has so many distractions, right? So you have to tie yourself away from distraction. But then the real challenge begins, because an empty mind is the devil's workshop. And then you're like, I have nothing else to do. I have to find something to do with this free time. That's where routine comes in. That's why I have a strict routine. I have to wake up at this time. If I don't, I'm going to hate myself. And then you kind of reinforce your brain to do those things. Force of habit. Habit leads to personality. So define the habits that you like, and they will start creating the personality that you want.
Do you think having a routine is a must? Like, everyone should really have a routine, whether it's a morning or whether it's a night routine. They should really focus on building one.
I think so. So far, I don't know if you can see this, but do you see this piece of paper on my wall?
Yeah. Oh,
do you see all the writing on it? Those are routines and plans and things that I do. And there's one there in the background, and then there's one there as well. And there are 3 huge pieces of paper which I see every single day. And then there's a small one on my table, which are things that I have to do on that very day. So your name is here. Like, meet Rasleen at this time, do this at this time. So that really helps you focus. And because once you have a routine, it frees up your time. It doesn't tie up your time. It frees up your time, because then you say, okay, from between 8 and 8:30 in the morning, I need to have breakfast, for example. If I don't have it, I'm not going to have it. Unless there's an emergency, that means between 8 and 8:30, you're going to have it. So which means at 7:59, whatever you're doing, you're going to stop. So you're like, okay, I'm typing this email, but at 8, I have to get up, so I have to finish this email. I can't stop it and start watching a YouTube video. I can't call my friend over the phone. So I have to finish this, because within a minute, I have to get up and go to the kitchen, So it kind of ties you up and then frees you up later. So that's why, because I'm a morning person, my routine is heavy in the mornings, and then gently becomes more relaxed in the evenings, because I'm exhausted by that time. But everybody needs it. I'm not the kind of person who says, oh, everybody's different, be who you want to be. No. If you want to be successful, the markers are clear. IQ is the first marker. Conscientiousness is the second marker. Conscientiousness comes out of a strong routine, strong standards, orderliness, cleanliness. So that is very, very important. Working out, if people don't exercise, once they start exercising, the whole neurochemistry starts changing. So they have to start doing those things. They really help. I have yet to meet a person who I've seen to be very successful or very accomplished, who doesn't have a daily planner and a daily things to do. And most of them wake up very, very early, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. And they start early. Because that's when you have the most energy, you have a good meal, and you're ready to go out into the world. So it's a tried and tested method.
Absolutely.
Do that.
So my last question to you is, one piece of advice you wish to give to all the youngsters out there who are aiming for big universities, or in general about life. How should they approach life?
Okay. The advice is different for people who live in the West and the people who don't live in the West. And I'll tell you why. It's because I know a lot of youngsters who live in India and Pakistan who live in that context and that culture, but they are trying to embody values which are found in the Western culture. So, for example, freedom of speech, leaving home early, independence, money over relationships, so on and so forth. Individualistic cultural attributes as opposed to collectivist cultural attributes. The reason for that is they are affected by them obviously because of the media influence. The United States has the biggest media hole in the world.
Yeah.
But imagine 20, 30 years from now if China becomes the economic superpower, and then the whole media might become the Chinese media. How will things change? So rather than being influenced by media and information and news from the world, focus on your context. I know so many people in Pakistan who are so concerned about the United States election between Trump and Biden. It doesn't affect you. It wouldn't affect you in the slightest. Indirectly, it affects you in terms of economics and security, but it doesn't. But they were so tuned into it. Or Netflix, everybody's watching those shows and being so interested in them. So my advice would be, first, make sure where you want your future to go. If you really want to move to the United States, it's not a picnic. There are millions of people standing in front of you in line. And then once you get there, it's not a cakewalk either. You really have to struggle against 330 million people who've been there longer than you, have more connections than you, have more money than you. So try to really understand who you are and where you come from and be authentic to your context and understand that. That would be the first advice. And second would be, try not to have, because I was like that when I was 20 as well. So if I met myself when I was 20, I would say to myself, try not to have too much idealism at 20. Try to balance it with realism and pragmatism, because what ends up happening with idealism is it's rarely fulfilled. And if you want to succeed in the world, or if you want to make a positive, influential change, you need to keep an idealistic core, but the rest of you has to really understand the way the world works. So notions like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
These are both nepotistic attributes. That's nepotism. So when I was younger, I would say, no, merit is the most important thing in the world. It's not.
Yeah.
In academia, maybe, but so many people end up getting jobs. That's why I keep saying, come to Oxford and build your network, because everybody will have that degree. But the people that you meet at Oxford, you will simply write to them and say, hi, I met you at Oxford. They're like, oh, yes, I remember you. Can I come work for you? Sure. Or not now, maybe next month,
Yeah.
So they need to understand that merit isn't everything, and start getting into the workforce very, very early. Very early. So do internships and volunteer experience. Be a waiter. My first job was a waiter. I was 16. I was a waiter at 16 because it gets you to understand how money works, what people are looking for. Because the job market doesn't need you as much as you need the job market. It's true. And a lot of interns who come in their early 20s, they act like, because in your education, you feel like you've done something amazing, which you surely have. But the market doesn't care about that. The market cares about deliverables. Yeah. Can you do something along those lines? So those would be two pieces of advice that I would give to youngsters. Younger than me. I'm a youngster too, Rasleen. Thanks for reminding me. But yeah, that's the advice I would give them. Yeah.
Yeah, that just blew my mind, to be honest. It was really deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ali, for coming on the podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. I'm also going to get you more on the subsequent episodes, because I wish to discuss international relations, which is your expertise, and talk about different countries' relations. It would be a fun and a very intellectually stimulating conversation, I believe so.
Would love to do it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.